What up? What up? What up? It is Friday episode of the Shark Cove. I'm here by myself. Nobody else showed up on time at least. Well, look, hey, I did change the time a couple times, three, maybe four times, and so that's kind of on me. We might get Moose, we might get free rolls. They might join into the party here. Not sure when that's going to happen, but that being said, the show must go on. We're going to talk about a couple different things here. Um, Perhaps it wouldn't be necessarily as long as I thought it would be, but I do think that the LEC slate is kind of interesting, not just from a betting perspective, but on the DFS side, the prices for some of these matches, given the odds, I don't know if they're necessarily justified. They do make it kind of wide open, and the fact that it's only a 700 person, 800 person, or 800 entry tournament does kind of open that up. But we'll talk about winners, losers, who I think might be bloody, and kind of just take it from there. Prior to getting into that, let's just hop over into the Eastern leagues. We do have an LCK slate that's 2K to first, and this has been kind of the bread and butter where we've been kind of living and dying. We have some data on some of these teams, albeit not necessarily enough to make some really strong assertions in terms of game totals and what we think. But let's hop over to T1 and DRX. This is a T1 team that tends to kind of start a little bit slow. We know that they level up as they go into Worlds, and we're about as far away from Worlds as we can be. T1 did drop that series against DR or not DRX against DM1. Didn't look so good game one. Looked a lot better game two. Game three turned into a little bit more back and forth, but they were eventually vanquished. They are, I think, rightfully favorites here against DRX, but to me, this number is just a little bit heavy. Albeit, I'm not a huge DRX fan. There's free rolls. Let's bring them in. Not a huge DRX fan per se, but this 750 number is a little heavy-handed, especially given kind of the hot and cold nature that we saw of T1 and the early season troubles that they've had over the last couple of years. So free rolls, thanks for joining in. Like I was telling them, I changed the time on everybody, 3-4 times, and so I can't really blame anybody for not showing up or not showing up on time or any of those things because what is time? And you and I have had that discussion before. It doesn't even matter. It all happens at the same time, right?
Yeah, time is a construct. Also, we're up against one of the other best shows, the Sheep Seats, which is Dark Sheep, which is another show. So you've booked out. You guys picked out Friday evenings, which is, come on, man, what are you doing?
Well, look, hey, it's the LEC opening weekend, right? I think we have some interesting things, and it's kind of fun because we do have some data, and not necessarily on some of the leagues that are playing, but we have some data from other leagues with a little bit of data from the leagues that are playing, and we can almost make educated predictions as opposed to the guesses that we have been throughout the course of this week. And it's exciting because as we go into this next week, I do think that for leagues like the Superliga, NLC, we've seen enough games that we can kind of get an idea of not only how teams play, but how the league's going to play overall. Some of these leagues have been playing a little bit slower. Some of the leagues have been playing a little bit faster. And then within the leagues, there are certain things that, or certain teams that are moving faster or slower, and just how that all goes. But with this TR or T1 DRX game, uh, any thoughts here? I just think that this is something where you take the DRX like maybe a quarter unit plus 750 and kind of move on and maybe look more towards the kill props and the match props and the total as opposed to any of the sides here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a real sucker for the over 2.5. Like, honestly, I know this is just a sucker position. I take them more often than I should. But in matches like this, I think that there's enough meat there without having to actually take a side. And then you're just getting such a bump even compared to the plus 1.5. So, I mean, it's dumb. It's a sucker position, but that's where I like it, you know?
I guess it's one of those things that you pay for, or you take the extra, the 250 over the 210. And look, if DRX sweeps this, it is what it is, right? If T1 sweeps it, you're not winning the +1.5 anyway. But so that's the difference there, right? Is that if DRX sweeps it, you're not hitting that over 2.5. But it is what it is. It's one of those things that if you get beat that way, you just accept it, move on, and dust yourself off, right?
Yeah, it's just that I find it hard to believe that DRX would do a clean sweep here. Like, I mean, they looked good. They looked good-ish. And T1 is T1. And so it's like, why would I take the 1.5 when I can get, to me, what is basically free points and just take the over 2.5? But anyways, it'll be a DRX 2-0 tonight.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they looked good. I mean, against Bro, we thought Bro was going to be a little bit better coming off of the Kespa Cup. At least I did. I was sitting there touting their futures, but they go out and they swap out hype, seemingly for no reason. Maybe because they lost that series, but they certainly didn't fare any better. I will say that Bro seems to be a early favorite of mine to stack against or stack on. Like for some reason, they just seem to be the bloodiest team in the LCK, and that has not been the truth for, as long as they've been in existence. So a little interesting, a little different. Team
let's
totals
do
here.
Before we move on, let's talk one more thing.
Sure.
Teddy playing tonight, you think we get Teddy?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's probably recovered.
Then I think we need to look at the over 22.5, right?
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that you've got this 22.5 here. That's an incredibly low number. When we looked at these teams, what did they do? Let's take a look here. So in their previous matches, DRX, that was a 39 and 18 and a 20 against Bro. And then T1 was a 16, 24, and 27. And to be fair, look, that 16 game, they were completely dominated, and it didn't look like they even, queued into the match until game 2. So I think that's a fair number. I think that's probably your best, like, kind of just even money. I mean, obviously you're paying the VIG on it, but that's probably where I'd go if I'm going anywhere in this map.
Yeah, I'll tell you, my game speed model has it right on the money for DRX. DRX I have right at 22.5. T1 I have in T1 wins. So DRX wins would be 22.5. T1 I have those wins at 23.5. But I think that's like a little, no, I don't really believe DRX is going to sweep. I'm just saying, because I would take a different position. So knowing my luck, that would be a DRX sweep.
No, I'm just saying I'm simply saying if you took the over 2.5 and DRX does sweep, and so you lose that bet, instead of taking the +1.5, which is a winning bet at that point, you just accept it and you move on.
Yeah,
that's all. Maybe you, if you truly believe that, or you feel that you're cursed, or you're going to be jinxing yourself, maybe you just go dabble a little bit on the correct score DRX 2-0, plus 1,200 or whatever their sweep odds, if you can find that somewhere, and then just hedge it from there. But I get a little getting off track. I don't really think DRX is going to do that. I kind of think the T1 wins the series and wins it cleanly, but I am a little hesitant in that regard. So I'm probably just staying away from this as a whole. I do have one prop from this series that I like on Underdog, not so much on PrizePicks, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
All right. Do you already do? I missed it. Did you do the first game as well?
No, I just randomly had these opened up, and so I started that way. So we've got D plus and the Freaks. D plus coming in as pretty big favorites here, -325. Certainly not a -1,600 like we see from T1 against a Freaks team that I thought looked a little bit better than I thought that they were going to look. But again, playing down in competition, whereas this D plus team looked good during Kespa. They have some continuity. I like Siwoo up in the top lane. He's going to be a guy that I constantly bet on until I lose all my money on him. That's quite possibly a way that could go. I don't think I'm looking at either of these on the game line. The 325 is obviously too high. I don't think that the -1.5 feels safe enough. The total's at 24.5. That perhaps is something I may be interested in. What do you think?
Yeah, Damn One. I have it I have a pretty good difference here. So the game speed model that I built has 26 3/4. So I would have set the line at 26.5, assuming Damwon wins. But what they did was they split the difference, basically 3-1, saying there's like a 33% chance that Freaks wins a game. It doesn't matter how they built the number, but yeah, the number's too low. And if you think Damwon wins in a sweep, you should take the number on both maps.
Yeah, I mean, even if Damwon loses, I think that number is too low. You look at the totals here: Damwon 16, 24, 27. You look at Nongshim, or not Nongshim, but the Freaks when they played Nongshim, 28, 27, 29. Again, the first game, that 16 seems like it's more of an outlier. That's the one that I would throw out. So yeah, I think that's a number that I would be interested in, and probably the only line that I'm interested in from these two games in terms of anything non-prop related. So
yeah, if I were taking Freaks here, I'd actually take the under on the 24.5, believe it or not, which would put me in a weird position. But my model is very adamant that it's just not a good game matchup overall, and that we would see less deaths in Freaks wins. But that goes against common knowledge, which is when the worst team wins, there's usually a higher amount of kills. So I could be way off, but I don't think this is a particularly close game. I'll be surprised if it could go 3 maps, but I don't know. I think this is a pretty open and close for Damwon.
Yeah, I do too. I just sometimes question in these early, especially with these new formats, how much some of these teams care about some of these games, because it does seem with some of the drafts and some of the ways that they're playing, and I can't remember specifically which game I'm talking about. It might have been Damwon game 2, but against T1, that like seemingly it feels like they're picking things and treating this more like a scrim than they would if this was, a true spring split like we'd seen in years past, not necessarily caring about it the same way, feeling out the team growing. And these are things that are totally okay and understandable. I just worry about the seriousness of a game 1 or a game 2, depending on what's drafted. And as such, the confidence level I have in some of the props and some of the kill totals and just the overall line, that's what concerns me at this point. Just not given enough information so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is like a pretty big advantage, because if I recall correctly, the entirety of Damwon, they're all Korean.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's the case, right? Because I don't think Berserker's Korean, and I just think that like building a new team that crosses language lines, as well as like play styles, I think Freaks has upside, but I don't think that they can really show up here. And with a guy like Aiming, I think that him and Beryl, who's the only new addition, right? I think they're just going to pour it on tonight.
They're all Korean.
Okay, well there you go. Well, that's at least something.
Everybody in the LCK is Korean, like literally.
I don't think that's right,
except for Lazy Feel.
Mm-hmm. Did you just pull up a map list? Good for you, man. I could have done that.
They all have Korean flags. So I knew Berserker was Korean, but I wasn't sure about the rest of them. So yeah, but I mean, the same thing is true. There is a continuity issue. I mean, that's one of the things that Damwon or like a team like Gen G that's kept like the core of their roster, even bringing a guy like Ruler back, I don't think is like bringing in a new piece, because he has experience with some of those guys, and there's something to be said about that. And we just don't see it often enough here in the case of League. And as we move into this like LEC League, this is like all new rosters in like almost every single situation. And we've got favorites that I think are wrong in some of these situations, or at least not where I would put the favorites. And as such, it's made for quite the interesting DFS slate. And it's made for some kind of interesting prop lines as well. So let's hop kind of into the LEC right here. We've got Heretics and Rogue.
Hold on. Okay. You don't just want to do LPL real quick?
We can do LPL. Let's go.
Like, let's just knock it out. Top Esports is minus 3,300.
Okay.
Would you go against that?
um, no, I do have some prop thoughts about Top Esports. Oh man, so Top has been historically one of those teams that I don't know. They play with this reputation of being a little bit faster and being a little bit bloodier than they truly are. And I don't know if the addition of Kanavi kind of changes that, but I think we have kill prop totals of Kanavi at like 10.5, 11. You've got Jackie Love at like 14.5. Cream is up there at like let's just pull it up. It's right here on my screen. Jackie Love's at 15.5. Cream's at 13. I mean, here's the reality of this. One of these three guys is going to go under at least. Maybe all three of them. Maybe take the kill combos. And it doesn't take a lot within this first three games for one of these three guys to fail. And we've seen it time and time again throughout the course of this past week, and not just in the LPL, but in some other leagues, where either a team falters when they're a big favorite like this and has a low kill game, or God forbid they lose, and most of these numbers end up chalked. I know that you, particularly earlier in the week, had a under on Jackie Love, and his number has since gone up.
Yeah, the model liked under 13.5, though that had a plus modifier at the time, which is part of what I liked about it. Because I think it was like a 1.19 mod on Underdog, which is pretty good.
Let's take a look. I think it's at 14.5 now on Underdog.
And probably
it
flat.
is even. So, I mean, I think that's probably about the same thing for you then, right? Like, you don't get the mod, but you get an extra kill that you get to play with.
Yeah, it depends on the way the correlation points work over there. Sometimes it's better to have the mod than to get the point. Like the model usually take the mod over a point, but because you're gaining 20%, right? At 1.12, you're gaining 20%, whereas gaining 1 point, you're gaining less than 8%. So it's
well, then what about gaining 2 points?
2 points. 2 points is pretty sweet. But I'll tell you what I did really like in this. Actually, I don't, on that same sheet that I had sent you guys, the over 5.5 deaths for like Cream and Kanavi. I've really come around. If those prices have stayed the same, I've really come around on that. And then the over 9.5 deaths for Vampire seems like a slam dunk as well. But
well, it's 12 over here on PrizePicks. So
yeah, that's about where that number should be. Yeah, because that's why I was surprised earlier in the week. I'm like 9.5 is bonkers.
Yeah, you find some of these discrepancies that are different, and there's actually one for the LCP where Underdog is actually the higher of the two numbers. It's on a kill total. You don't see Underdog typically as the higher of the two, so that immediately caught my eye. There were a couple of them, and these death props I think are one of the places that you can attack, but you have to be kind of early. I put in a bet on Andal earlier. He was at 0.9, over 5.5 deaths. Immediately after I put it in, I went to put in another one on him, and immediately it was down at a 0.75. So not quite the same value that it once was. I mean, it's still good.
Yeah,
but
I wouldn't actually. I wouldn't take the Vampire one on Underdog anymore. It's now 10.5, and it has a negative modifier of 0.85 for the higher, whereas it was flat at 9.5 when I got it earlier this week.
Yeah,
those
you have to be early on some of those. I'm seeing that with the death modifiers. Just it doesn't take a lot to get that modifier down to a 0.8 or a 0.7 on Underdog.
Yeah. All right. So the rest of these are just sucker bets, right? Like you're not going to take. Do you think WE can take a map here? Because you're getting plus money to just take one map.
I don't think so. I mean, anything can happen, right? I think.
All right. Then I feel like we've covered this.
Look, if you think WE can take a map or take two maps, maybe you get some action in I don't know, in DFS, right? Yeah, obviously they need to win the series there, but I think that's about as likely as them taking a map and being relevant there. So I think Top's a really good team. I think they've been a really good team, and they only seemingly got better at their weakest point. Not that Tian was like a terrible jungler, but let's face it, Kanavi's better. Um, but there's only so many kills that can go around, right? That's the other component to this.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems with their makeup is how everything's going to spread. But I think it's fine. But I really like Tian, and I think what Kanavi can do though is increase the ability for Cream to focus on solidifying his weaknesses and boost his strengths. Because we recognize Cream's the weak link there. Like Crisp is maybe a downgrade, probably a little bit of a downgrade, but Cream is definitely the weakest point on that team.
Oh, for sure. At this point,
and so
100%.
Him not having to worry about managing the map as much as he did with Tian, because Kanavi is just so much stronger there, I think really does lift the team up quite a bit. But we'll see.
In some regard, he's not going to be required to carry certain games. He can play more of I don't know, a kind of support mid lane role. That's not necessarily how I would have thought of him prior to him joining Top, but like that's kind of where he needs to be, like in top tier league. If we're talking about mid tier teams or lower tier teams, yeah, I mean he could certainly carry. He's like one of those guys that is a first option on a bad team, but he's going to be the third or fourth option on a good team, and that's kind of where he's at. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, if Akali's ever strong in meta, you get him one game on Akali, you guys will win that game because he's incredible. Sure. But other than that, it's just like, and with Fearless, he's just never going to see any of his. I have some concerns about this,
but you have to get to 5 games. That's the thing. So I don't think that's happening this series.
All right, you want to do LEC?
Let's do it. I've been thinking about this all day, so I'm excited for LEC. I really don't know in regards to some of these which way I want to go. I've got some lineups I've got to build before I go to bed tonight. We've got Rogue versus Heretics. That's going to be the first game. I've seen some chatter out there. I thought it was going to be a little sneaky that Rogue should win this game. I mean, they're not favored to do so. But let's look at these rosters. I mean, this Rogue roster, you have Adam, Malrung, Larson, Patrick, Jae Young Hoon, aka Execute. Whereas on this Heretics roster, you've got, kind of a ragtag bunch of EMEA guys, and Sheo. Why Heretics is favored here, I'm not sure. I love some of these props. I have a feeling that Adam over 1.5 kills, one of your favorite props for the day, and simply just because I looked at your projections, and Adam, even in a loss, has a 2 kill projection. So I'd imagine that that's a spot that you're going to attack or like to attack.
Yeah, I also favor Rogue here. I think one of the main things is that a lot of the market is based off of what we saw from. I'm a huge Young Hoon fan. I think the guy's really good, and I think that he was not put in a winning position essentially for the last year, and because he's a really active support player, and they really wanted him to play a different style. And I think that him here, if he's allowed to play to his strengths, and if Malrung is able to play with a little bit more form than he had in CBLOL last year, I think that Rogue actually could be at the top of this league by the end of the split.
Yeah, and I mean, we look at the props here. If you think Rogue's going to win, and I mean, that's essentially what you're doing in some of these situations, because these props are not ones that you can really, feel good about taking the under in any game in the LEC. But, you have Rogue at like Adam for kills. PrizePicks only has kills. But across the board, Adam to Execute, it's 2, 1.5, 3, 3.5, 0.5 on Underdog. 1.5, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 0.5. Adam's just a dude that gets kills whether they win, whether they lose. It feels like one of the safest places that you can go if you feel like this team is going to win. I think Patrick probably ends up with 4 or 5 kills. Larson probably ends up with like somewhere between 2 to 4. Amalrung on the assist total 5.5, and even execute here at 7.5. All of those props are playable, not necessarily together, but it's kind of like a pick your poison. Which one do you want? I mean, if this team is going to win, Malrung will have more than 5.5 assists. Assists for jungles was something that I loved attacking last season. It has not been as fruitful as we've seen kind of the emergence of some of these kind of duelist jungles, your Nocturnes, your Xin Zhaos, less of the tanky guys that aren't going to get kills, or even like a Wukong. And if they get, a 70% kill participation, but they're taking half of those kills, they're not hitting some of these assist numbers the way that they were last year. But 5.5 is not that number, and Malrung is not that guy. So you could take both of those props, quite frankly, in different slips, and probably feel comfortable with Malrung finishing with a 2 and a 6 in the kills and assists, provided Rogue win, possibly even if they lose.
Yeah, I think right now where the market's off at is it's not appropriately. They've kind of overcorrected, and the props for jungler kills are a little low on average. I'm not talking about right here, but just to your larger point. And that what I've been playing a lot of are assists for the ADC, because I think that the assists for ADC in series have been way too low, like where we get 3 games. With 1 game in the LEC, this creates a real problem. But I think like my strategy, knowing him as a player, what he's done historically, not looking at what I think was an aberration year last year, I actually really like the execute over 0.5. Like you're getting a solid modifier. It's essentially I know, but we used to see him, his average before last year, his average was like 2.2 in losses and almost 3 in wins. And if we're expecting that they got him because they saw what he was when he was good, and that's why they've signed him, then I think we can expect him to probably be a little more proactive and be more involved in a way where he's likelier to net 1 single kill than 50%.
Yeah, no, hey, I love it. And there's nothing better than sweating that support kill, because it starts off at the beginning. Some of these other ones, you've got to get a kill or 2. So you're sweating like the build up, and then when it's at the cusp, that's when like the real excitement happens. Man, it's right from the beginning here, right? And like that's important, because some of the easiest times for the support to get the kill are when their champion is, by all accounts, equal in strength, because they get out leveled pretty quickly. So it makes it very difficult for them to steal some of those kills. Execute's the type of guy that takes that ignite, gets that kill early in lane, maybe plays a little pike, gets a little crazy. I love it. I think I'm gonna put a support ticket together, and that's gonna be the backbone of it. Maybe I should do it before we affect this multiplier, but at 1.2, I don't think you can go wrong there. So I think Rogue's going to be popular on DraftKings. They're one of the most affordable, one of the cheapest teams. There are a couple other really cheap teams, though, that kind of should even out the ownership a little bit. But I like Rogue. I'm going to play them. I'm going to play a couple double dog lineups, and I think I like all of their props for the most part. So, yeah, and you know what? The Ignite for First Blood, that makes a lot of sense. They need that feat of strength. He might go out there and get it for him. Let's move on to the next game. The next game is going to be Vitality versus BDS. This Vitality roster, it's just not exciting for me. It's not exciting at all. I think this Vitality roster is, I could be surprised. Knack is a guy that I loved in the LFL. I loved him in EU Masters. I don't know if it's going to translate here. It made sense to bring him up, but like this is a game they're playing against BDS. BDS has a known shitter as 113. This guy can die a lot. I mean, he is hot or cold. Like you can either take his assist props or you take his death props. One of the two, if not both of those, will hit. Unfortunately, You can't get his assist props. You can't get his death props because our boy Nathan did not put him in the player pool. That should be corrected by tomorrow. But what are your thoughts on this game? Looks like we've got BDS as a minus 220 favorite. I think that that's probably pretty close to what I would have it at.
I think it's really going to come down to Hillesong. Like, if Hillesong gets on the right champion, I think that this is done. But like, I think the bot lanes here are going to decide the game because the rest of it's the matchups aren't very interesting or impressive. I think BDS have a slight advantage in top lane, Vitality a slight advantage in the junglers. Like Nuke, he's been around for a million years. Ice has been good, but he's not really good. Like, I don't know. This game is just like an absolute crap fest. I don't think it scores very well for DFS unless Vitality wins. And I think it's a difficult to predict game. And so, like, for props, I don't really have a lot of interest here either. This is just kind of a fade for me overall.
Yeah, I didn't really attack anything specifically because the 113 death prop wasn't there. Mike, do you see more mage bot in the LEC? Look, I don't think so. I don't think a lot of these guys are mage players. I think we might see it in some of the like the NLC or some of these leagues that when they go to like a best of 3 and best of 5 and they get into fearless, that perhaps may happen. But I'd have to look through it. I don't know. You let me know if one of these guys is spamming mages in solo queue or I don't know. I'm kind of trying to think through some of the mid laners, and I guess maybe SK. I mean, because Reeker's champ pool is kind of suspect, but dude loves his Yone, so maybe. I don't assume as much though. Let's move on. Let's get into that one. Talking about that, we've got Giant X as favorites against SK Gaming. Again, this wasn't one necessarily that I was too interested in from a prop standpoint. This isn't one that I was too interested in DFS. I don't think either of these teams are particularly good. I don't think that either of them are bad. I think that Closer is overrated. I think Noah's going to a situation where he can feel a little bit more comfortable. He doesn't have some of the same expectations. There is that kind of nuance of knowing his bot lane partner. But look, that being said, I don't think that he's very good. That goes for SK Gaming too. Look, these are both EMA teams. These are ERL teams, top to bottom. Reeker's been up at this level before. He hasn't performed. Maybe this is going to be different this time around. But man, I look at these two rosters. I don't really have a lot of interest in this in DFS. So kind of almost feels like this is the game that blows up as a result because nobody can end.
Well, I'll tell you, my model has this: if SK wins, which I actually prefer SK, but if SK wins, that would be the second most possible kills. Rogue forecast for 29.5 kills and wins. SK forecast for 28.5 in wins. And so, like, I don't play DFS anymore, notoriously, which is why I'm holding everyone's projections hostage. But if I were, like, Rogue SK is actually, that's probably what I play. And because I think that Rogue are incorrectly dogged, and I think that SK are very live here.
Yeah, I'm looking at these totals. These are a lot higher than I would almost just, I'd blanket take the under on a lot of these, quite frankly.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, right now it's weird because, like, the LCK, they're still putting the totals out 22, 24, and that's way too low. But these totals seem way too high to me in most of the cases. Like the KCG2 game, I think the total's like 28.5, which is insane. That's too high.
Yeah, I think that the LEC is notoriously a league that is a lower total league, so this is kind of surprising to me. We have seen, like, the NLC. I mean, obviously a lower tier has been incredibly bloody, but like the Superliga has not. Superliga, I mean, like, look at the average kills on these. Let me take a look here real quick. Average kills over in the Super League. Let's see. I haven't entered all of it in, so never mind. But I know it's really low. I just know that. Not a lot on this one for me. Again, like I said, I'm kind of staying away from it, but I'll probably throw in a couple SK gaming. Just on your advice here. Let's get into the kind of the games that I was more excited about. I think this is where a lot of the ownership is going to lie. We've got Fnatic as not a heavy favorite, but a large enough favorite against Mad Lions, Movie Star Riders, whatever you want to call them, just to bring up those rosters here. Fnatic stayed for the most part the same, except for their bot lane. No longer is Noah and June. Now it's Upset and Mickey X. In some regards, that's a huge upgrade. And other ones, not so much, in my opinion. And then you got Movie Star, another team that kind of stayed together, has a lot of continuity, had an incredibly glaring weakness last year in the mid lane, went out and got one of the best mid laners in the West. Obviously, that is at times a hot take and a guy that sometimes gets in his own way. But I was a big Mad Lions guy. I'm a big Movie Star guy. They're priced pretty cheap. I have a hard time not pairing them up with Rogue and playing some of these props because we're looking at, Aloya, 7.5 assists, 1.5 kill. Jojo, 2.5 kills. How do I not take the overs here? Am I crazy, or are you loving Fnatic here?
I got really burned hard by JoJo in fantasy last year in season-long fantasy. I was like, he's pick one, number one. The metrics really put him at the top of everybody, regardless of wins or losses. Like he just forecasts significantly better. It wasn't good, man. And so I'm a little gun shy. I will say, let me look at the numbers that I have.
You look at this. A PrizePicks, he's 3, 2.5, a 5.5 on kills. Alvaro is 8.5 on the assists. Supa's 3.5, 4. I mean, these numbers are out there. I mean, you can even look at death props at Humanoid. Dude loves to die when they lose. That 2.5 is something that could happen even in a win. Look, me and Kev talked about this when we reviewed the LEC back in December. I am not an Upset guy. I think Upset is one of the most overrated, and like I feel violent. I want to be violent about how much I don't think he's very good, and how overrated and how glazed this guy is. He's won nothing. He's never done anything. He just fucking sucks, dude. He doesn't suck like let's say like a Noah sucks, but it's a different type of suck. It is a guy that has talent. Maybe the same way you feel about JoJo. Like JoJo is this guy that's good, gets all this rating, but sometimes he just sucks. But he does it in a way that, like, at least he's being aggressive. Upset is, Reckless 2.0, just trying to protect that KDA, not die, and just never kind of overextends. But as such, never really makes that big play either.
But do you really feel like Supa, like, let's talk about it in comparison. Do you feel like Supa is really better?
I do.
See, because I think that I don't necessarily disagree with your take, even though it's a pretty hot take, but I think they're actually pretty even, the two of them. And I think that, like, here, Mickey X represents an improvement, like a stability, but they may be more cautious. Like, that's what shows in my model, is that this game plays pretty cautious, which is surprising reading the names.
See, I think Mickey X is another death merchant. I mean, we go back and let's go take a look at some Mickey X.
Oh, bro, he had like a 32 death share last year. Like a third of his team's deaths were him. I'm not even joking. I think for the entire year, for like all the splits, it was like 30% or 28.5%. For summer alone, it was 32. Like, I mean, the guy dies, man.
You look at these summer playoffs, and these are all in wins. 8, 8, 7, 8, 2, 6. Like, that's a prop that you can go ahead and attack. That 2.5. Like, dude's gonna die, and with Upset not dying, Mickey X is gonna die for him. That 2.5 on the deaths, probably lock that in with an execute over on the support ticket, and kind of just go ahead and spend your money ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, Upset actually does have one of the lowest death shares too in the entire LEC. Like, he does. I mean, like, the guy does not die in wins, especially, but even in losses, he hides a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, the other prop that I particularly like here is Aloya. Again, I think you take the assists or you take the kills. I think these are again. I think Mad Lions. I'm going to call them Mad Lions for some period of time here. I think that they win this game. I think that they're the better team for a lot of reasons. People were down on them, but I think a lot of that revolved around just a problem in the mid lane. I think these guys are revitalized. I think they were excited to have JoJo. Um, yeah, I think big things. I think they're really live to win this entire, LEC, let alone
No,
just this one game. So,
no,
and
no.
I think,
I think
yeah,
they'll
yeah,
win the game.
Mike's right here. Soup is the goat, man. He's super good. I think Mickey X is the one spot on Fnatic that is superior. I mean, you can make the argument that Humanoid is as well, but Mickey X dies a lot. That doesn't take away from how good he is. It's just kind of his play style.
I'm not a big Mirren guy either. Like there's a lot of parts of this Mad Lion team that I just like. I think that the upside for this team is like is split winning. Like I'll agree with you there that the potential ability of this Mad Lions team is to win it all. But I think that that potential ability is going to be hampered by the reality of these players, especially putting so many of them on one team. And I think that we're going to see a lot of underperforming throughout this. So when they win, they're going to win, but I think they're going to lose a lot more as favorites than they probably should. Here, I think they win, but I don't love it. I don't love what it looks like. I think the Eluia kills are 1.5, so I like the over there. But other than that, I don't know. This isn't for me either.
All right. Last one. We've got the game that everybody's probably kind of circled in on here. I like these timings 12, 12:45, 1:30, 2:15. So they think this is we're going to be done with LEC at 3:30, 3:45. I don't know about that. Maybe the Otacon will bring us some 20-minute games because that certainly has been a reality. One of the things I focused in on here is Yike playing against G2 in his first game on KC, first official game, 2 kills. We kind of mentioned earlier that some of these jungle champions are a little different. I don't know if I expect Yike to play some of those supportive roles. I feel like he perhaps left G2 because he didn't want to continue to play second, third, fourth fiddle on a team where, that team was very good when they focused on him as a carry. Perhaps KC is going to do that. I like that over 2 kills. I know that's kind of a little iffy, but I think KC wins this series too. So I know it's one game, it's not a series, but I think KC wins. So I'm taking kind of the overs on the KC side of things.
I'm sorry, you think KC wins?
Yeah, I do.
Like you think? Let's talk bot lanes here. Like, or actually, let's back this up. What do you think is the most important element of the game in the current meta? Like, what players need to advance a victory condition?
I think different teams can do it different ways, but I think the jungle is the most important role right now to facilitate whoever. Well, it's one of two things. You're either looking to be that primary carry or facilitate one of the two kind of carries outside of yourself, whether that be your mid laner. I think Flatty is very good. Obviously, I don't think he's better than Caps, but he could be better than Caps tomorrow. I think from this bot lane perspective, yeah, I do give G2 a slight advantage there, but I just like this KC team. I like what I've seen from them. I think Yike is way better than Skewmon. That was a surprise to me. Canna and Broken Blade, I think, is kind of an even. Broken Blade's probably a little bit better, but I don't know. KC wins this game.
Okay, yeah, I'm hard pressed to get there. I really like Lebrov. I really like G2's bot lane as it currently is. I agree that Caps is, at this point in time, what we're getting is kind of inconsistent. And also that Skewmond is kind of a strange signing. I'll be interested to see what this looks like. Kana didn't look that great last year. This is a bounce. And I genuinely, this is another team in KC where I think this is a big step forward for them overall. But I think that G2 has maintained enough stability in, like, let's call it institutional structuring, that
Okay.
I have to take G2. Like, if G2's number were better, I would take more of it. But you guys, everybody always likes KC.
Well, look, I think that this is a pretty close match. And so, when it comes to the LEC, we are sort of guessing, right? Like, some of these other leagues have kicked off and we can make some more educated prediction. We have some data to back it up. When it comes to the LEC, a lot of it is off of feelings and data from last year that just really doesn't mean as much in the grand scheme of things right now. So when you give me a plus 145 on a team that I think is, in my opinion, at least a even match, I'm going to take it. So that's
Put
where
enough
I'm
money
at.
down to move that line, please. Because if you can get G2 closer to 100, it's an easy slam dunk spot.
Well, look, and here's the thing I will say is I don't like KC enough that I'm putting any of their props in my slips. I'm not going there. KC, my exposure to them probably is actually limited to DFS. So
Okay. Well, and I mean, like, this is, we haven't addressed this, but these are still best of one games. So best of one games, you have all the regular pitfalls of a best of one game, which is a bad attempt or like a bad dive can cost the entire game. You can get out of position a couple times. You have a bad draft. You just like have one person who has minor food poisoning. Like, it's a best of one. Anything can happen. It's like Gelati always says, it's just a video game. Anything can happen. Like he's always saying.
Well, it's not only that, but like it's not only is it a best of one, but it's the first game any of these teams have played on this new map, that have played under this patch. They've been playing scrims, but scrims are not like regular games. They just aren't. It's a completely different environment. They do things to mess up in those scenarios. And the reality is when you mess up there, it's okay. You can fuck around and you can do other things to try and see if you can, get out of that situation or do things that potentially you wouldn't do on stage. Some of these guys, this is going to be their first time on stage in the LEC studio. So look, there are a lot of variables here that are at play that kind of make this volatile. So that being said, like you mentioned, anything can happen. It's a best of one. It's the first game of the season. Do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. We'll be back here for game 2. And when I say we'll be back here, I don't necessarily mean we're going to have a show tomorrow. It just means that we'll all move on. It'll be okay. And game 2 will happen on Sunday. And it should be a snow day here in the DC area. So can't wait for Monday because won't have to work. So final thoughts here. Any props that we haven't mentioned that you particularly like, whether it's on Underdog or PrizePicks, that you want to throw out there for people to mix and match with?
Most of the ones that I marked were, as you know, much earlier in the week, like at posting. So I'm not sure where anything is. I will tell you, my support ticket is also going to have Labrov over a half kill with a plus modifier, because I think G2 is going to win, and I think in a G2 win, Labrov gets at least 1 kill. But this is all I care about is support kills.
Look, hey, that's a fun way to watch. Not gonna lie. Whether you take the over, or you take the under. There's nothing better than getting that early support kill, and there's nothing worse that like in 40 minutes into the game somehow a support snakes a kill and takes you on your on the over in game 3, and you're just like, you motherfucker, how did you do this? But props I like that I'm putting on my ticket in different variations. I like Andal over 5.5 deaths. Again, my bad. The multiplier was a 0.9 earlier, which sucks, but it moved to a 0.75 after I wagered. I didn't get to max out on him, so I do apologize. I was the tipping point. Not that my bet was big by any means, but it was somehow the bet that took it over. So if you got that, great. If not, I'm sorry. I think it's like 9 on PrizePicks. In fact, let's take a look. On PrizePicks, that death is for Andal 8.5. Yeah, so getting it at 5.5, taking the over. Dude died 5 times in a 1-1. Look, if they 1-1 or if they 2-0, probably doesn't die 6 times, but if they get 0-2'd, which I think is a very real possibility, the most likely possibility, I think that he dies more than 5 times. I like Saiwu over 5.5 kills. PrizePicks, he's 6.5. I believe in him. I do think Damwon ends up winning that series 2-0. I think he gets 3 to 4 kills in both of those games. If you don't believe in top lane kills, and I totally get it, I like Showmaker higher than 7.5 or 8 kills, depending on the site that you're on. I don't think you put either of those together. You pick one, make a couple different slips, and you diversify your investment. Also, so if you can't get Andal, I think you can go get Sponge. His is 5.5 deaths as well. Don't do this often, but Faker is 6.5 kills on Underdog, where he is. What is he on? PrizePicks. I think he's like 8. So I think you can take that if you think that they 2-0. I do believe that they do, so I have a little bit of Faker action. I have Adam over 1.5 kills. I have an Aloya kill and assist prop both over. And then it gets into the LCP. I've got Arya over 8 kills or 8.5 if you're on PrizePicks. I've got Jackie Love under 15.5 on PrizePicks. And I've got another one. Here's one I'm going to throw into... this one I don't feel great about, but I got Betty under 12 kills. 2 games. Talon, I think Talon wins this game. I think that they 2-0 over where are they playing again? Like they're playing an Australian team. Who is it? I can't think of the name. Chief Esports Club. They've got a little bit of a new roster. Here's my thought is, and you can do some math for me here, free rolls. Let's say we peg them as a 2-0, Talon 2-0s, right? Let's say they 2-0, they get 36 kills, right? 18 and 18. I think that's kind of high, right? I think it's very easy for them to maybe lose one of those games. I think it's very easy for them to go under 18. They could obviously blow up in both of those games or one of them. But let's say that they get 36 kills. Does Betty have a 30% kill share?
Well, 30% kill share would be, what's that, like almost 11? Great news, though, because you're talking about taking the over 12.5?
Under 12.
You're thinking the under, because it's currently 11.5 on Underdog, and I was going to say, I think the higher might actually have some juice for you there. But 11.5 then is where you put the number.
I think he's under 12 on PrizePicks, so that's where I'm taking it. I take a lot of the unders on PrizePicks because they're a little bit higher, so it makes good. I like Ozzy over 6.5 kills if you want something else in the series. So I think Fofo takes some kills. I think Karsa ends up getting some kills. To my point earlier, I think some of these jungle kill numbers are kind of low given the champions that they're playing, trying to pull those numbers from data last year. So you could go Karsa over 5.5 too, because I do think that this ends up being a 2-0 for Talon. So, excuse me. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm just looking through these numbers. These numbers moved a lot this week since I posted earlier in the week in our super secret Discord. Because I'm like, oh yeah, well we can take this or this, and looking at it now, these numbers have moved a lot on Underdog, which is surprising. Because usually they're pretty stable.
No, they've been moving, especially when they post that far in advance. They do have to take some of this stuff down and kind of adjust to it. So, it does behoove you to look at some of these numbers earlier. If you're watching the show and you have any questions or you want to know what my projections or what the models look like, you can always ask me. But we can also go to the tool over on PayDirt. This is the League of Legends matchup builder. Please play around with it. We have made some improvements over last week. No longer do you have to select 3 games out of a best of 3 for a best of 5. You can actually do a couple different things here. There are some errors. So if you find some of them still, the way that everything's kind of calculating out right now is still kind of wonky. It should be good by Monday, but you can see how many games you want to simulate. I will show you the one thing that I caught last night, V-Rolls, that was kind of screwy. Is I had Bro winning game 1 and game 2, both with 15 kills. Somehow, some way, Hambeck was getting 18 assists in that 15 kill game. He's that good. So that, I think that's changed. I haven't updated this at this point, but it was adding a modifier after it was calculating. So that should be fixed, but play around with that. And yeah, if you see any errors there, let me know. But it should be something that's pretty fun to use for SVP and NLC next week. So perfect. Any final thoughts?
I don't know, man. You wanna have a little fun? You have a ticket built. We can compare like a 3 or 4 pick ticket or something. See where we end up, or we can build a ticket.
Yeah, let's build a ticket. So let's see. What do we want to start with? We want to start with our boy, right? We want to go hit some execute, right?
Yeah, let's sync this right away. We'll know beginning of the day where we're going to end up.
So we're going to hit some execute. Let's see. What else did we want to do here?
Well, I'm gonna tell you one that I really like. I'll give you another one here. It's a day ahead, but we got the whole weekend. I like the Shanji over 7.5 kills.
Okay.
So that's NIP Invictus. And that's against the Shy. I think what we saw from them earlier this week was fine. So I like that over 7.5 a lot.
Okay, let's take that. No problem on the modifier there. Let's take a look. Vikings versus Gam. I think that this is a situation where they're going to get a ton of kills. Who's going to get those kills? It's going to be a dirty, dirty game. Flying Oyster 2. Let's take a look. Is there anything here? Against my better judgment, I'm going to take a lower on Jinjia assists. I think 17.5 is too high, given how they played this morning. Got a little burned by that. Was the only thing that I missed. Kind of killed me because it was attached to everything. So we're at 7.2 and 3. Do we want to add one more?
We could put, because I'm not sold on that Jinjia one, but we could put your Betty pick on there as well, which I think is pretty interesting, where you're looking at the Betty lowers, because the 11.5 is functionally the 12. I mean, you just don't get the hook. But if you were taking it at 12, you're setting the number at 11.5. So I don't love it. This is what. Let me see what else. Let me see what else I have in my sheet.
Rather not attach it there, because that's not like in my core plays. That's like a little. If I was going to take something out of that I would take the Aussie over 6.5 kills. I think that that's a better play. But there was another one here that I liked. Let's go grab Mickey X deaths.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I will say, I'm going to take a look now and see if they fixed it.
It's 0.88, so
yeah,
that's fine. It's fine with our ticket, though.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Earlier in the week, they had that whole NIP Invictus game just way off the mark. I'm going to take a look and see. Because I think, just for viewers, I think, most of these Shanji numbers are wrong. I think that 7.5, he should be over 7.5 kills. But they only have him for 12.5 assists as well for 3 maps, which is, I think, just way too low. I think this whole Aki, all this stuff is that whole game. I think you could pick almost any player there, and there's a living prop.
I'll tell you what, I do feel confident about this Jinjia, but I'm going to throw one in here that I think you like too. It's going to be Targamas over 2.5 deaths.
Yeah,
it's a 0.9, but I mean we're what, 5, and we're getting. I mean, it's not terrible for an LOL ticket. We can throw another one in there if you wanted. You're talking about the Let's see. I know this is
Let's see
kind of.
what else I got here.
Oh,
I got.
oh, I didn't. I almost put it in the wrong one. Shanji. So we can't get kills on Doinby. PP God. I mean, I think deaths are something that I would be interested in. Some 8.5. 12.5, 14.5. What are they at here? Okay.
The vampire deaths, the mod is so bad. It's 10.5, but it's also 0.85. Because I'm like, so that's a slam dunk. But
what about GG? 6.5 deaths.
I think I had that right on the number. I think what I preferred was the.
Oh, you know what we can add? I know. We can get kind of crazy with this. I think we're both in agreement on this. We can go back here and we can go grab it's all, damn it. I'm gonna say Adam. I don't know. That's it. Look, if we have two more, if we build out an 8-man ticket, I mean, we can throw Adam on there.
Yeah, Adam's a solid play. I'm gonna get mine up to 7 right now. Go. Okay. Oh, that doesn't change my modifier much though. That adds 20.
I already got Mickey X death, so I can't go get kills on something there.
All right. Okay, so let me give you my ticket that's going to be different than your ticket. We're going to have some overlap here. Execute over half kill. That's a 1.2 modifier. I'm also taking Lebrov over half a kill. That's a 1.04 mod. Shanji over 7.5 kills. Targamas over 2.5 deaths. I'm taking these two are wild. I think that people are going to bump on this. Jackie Love under 14.5 kills and Rookie under 12.5 kills. These are two names that I don't think anybody wants any piece of. That Rookie under 12.5 kills comes with a 1.2 modifier as well. Then I'm taking the Adam over 1.5 kill. So that'll be a, what's the percentage here? 24x. For flex 7-piece.
So I really want to grab something out of this series too. I just don't know what I want to do. Do I want to do? Let me take a look at something from earlier today. This here. Let's take a look at the games. Kratos died 3 times, died 5 times, died 3 times. So a 6 number. I think that they end up losing. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. All right, so I've got a 54.23 man ticket.
Ooh. That's a spicy meatball, as they might say.
You know, every time I do this, it's not as good. I remember even 6 months ago, this would have been, 110 multiplier, but it is what it is. And that's the world that we live in. So I'm just going to throw $5 on this. I'm not doing anything crazy. This is just for the lulz. I am going to reuse this, and I'm going to throw a little bit more on part of this, but I'm going to take some of this stuff off. These are all the ones that are going to hit, of course. But if I had to core this out, get rid of some of these bad ones, I'm just going to go with an execute Mickey X. That's going to be tomorrow. That evens it out. 3x. Yeah, we're good. I'll throw that for 15. Perfect. That's all I got. What does yours end up being?
24x.
Okay. Was it 6 or 7 or?
It's a 7 flex.
Well, yeah, you have.
Well, yeah, you have to. Yeah.
But you know what? I'll join you in that Jackie Love. I'll do it over here though. I'm going to do it on PrizePicks under Jackie Love. Map 1 kills. Let's see. Can we get? We can get some Jae Young Hoon, and then.
Yeah, it's always just so hard to go against JKL because I mean, like he could do 14 in one map, right? Like we've seen him do that before. It's like 14 in one map, then he's only got to get one more across 2 maps. Like, it's scary. Like it's a scary position.
Trying to think. Map 1. Oh, you know what I'll do is I'll throw a little Showmaker Love on here. Map 1 and 2 kills. I think 8 kills. I don't know. I don't know if I want to do it. I got scared. I'm scared.
Hold on. What are you looking at, Showmaker?
Just overkills. 8.
I'll give you my number for show because I don't think I posted LCK. For show, it's for 2 maps, and the number's 8.5. I would take the under.
8.
What's that?
It's 8 even.
Okay, because I have it at 4, and 4.17 is his estimate for wins, and 1.8 in a loss. So if you think they go 1-1, it's a slam dunk under. Otherwise, it's right on the number.
Yeah, I think he's my number's just a little bit higher. I think they're playing a little faster, and I think he's, as long as he doesn't, troll us and pick Xerath, he's going to get some kills. But that being said, could troll us and pick Xerath. So I don't know if I'm going to put that as my second number on that one.
What's it?
Saiwu's too high here at 6.5. Faker's too high. I don't want that. That's an interesting number. I think I'm just gonna go with
aiming. I'm gonna rerun my ticket with aiming over 10.5. Wow, that number's too low.
Okay, that's what I'll throw on there.
Yeah, because I have a lot of the excess kills. I think probably where our difference is where you have Showmaker's number up a bit. I have aiming's number absorbing that extra. So
I'm not taking that. I already have him on a ticket. I have him on a ticket. I'm just gonna go with the Karsa. You know what? I said that the jungle should take it. I'm just gonna move my exposure over. Karsa gets over and kills. Betty probably goes under. So, all right, perfect. All right, I'm gonna hit the music. I may be back tomorrow. For yours, welcome to come. I should have some type of regular schedule coming up here, but we won't yet. So, thanks for joining me. It was fun. Let's hit the music.